Hi everyone, my name's Anthony Cummins and I'm the author of Book of Bushido and How to Be a Modern Samurai, Samurai Death Cult, things like that. Now I've got a massive problem that I find always crops up in samurai history, and it really does annoy me, to be honest. And that is what I like to term the generational shadow, or the other. So there's generational shadow and there's also author experience. All right, so you all have been there if you're interested in samurai history. Oh, what date's this scroll? 1604. Oh, Edo period then. All right, okay. What date's this scroll? 1632. Edo period then. It's like, no, it's not Edo period. It is technically Edo period, but it is not Edo period. That is Sengoku period scroll, without a shadow of a doubt, depending on who the author is. So basically, the thumbnail to this video is of a samurai with a shadow over a smaller samurai, yeah. And this is what quite annoys me. So we look back on the periods because we have been brought up with periods. So for example, when before the internet, before digital, before analog, before any of that, you could only hear music when somebody played it to you, and you could only hear it for the first time. Like when you watch a film for the first time, you sit there at the orchestra. You're not used to, there's no music you can click play on. There's only people who play music, and then all of a sudden the full orchestra goes, and you're like, oh my God, I've heard, that's amazing. It's a one-off experience, right? It's a one-off experience. Now the reason I'm saying this is, basically, what you find is the way we look at things is backwards. So we look at, like, I love O Fortuna, Carmina Burana. Yep, there we go. Dun, 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 dun. Yep, off it goes. But the first time you ever hear that, when before analog music, for anything like that, must have been outstandingly amazing, yeah? But I don't remember that. I wasn't there in the old 1800s, so I only remember it backwards. Oh yeah, there's the record, there's the CD, there's the digital. I put it on. Yeah, okay, I remember this because I remember it in my memory and all this. I'm going backwards. The samurai were going forwards, okay? So they were pushing themselves forwards and we are pushing ourselves backwards, which means when you go, oh, so that Muromachi period, that's the Heian period, or that's the Edo period, that's Showa period, and you're like, no guys, even though they did name their own periods, we are looking backwards. So this is the frustrating bit. So when we are looking for information in a document, we're like, right, so let's look at ninjas, yes, shinobi, so Book of Ninja, stuff like that. There's a debate on what is the earliest shinobi literature, but let me give you an example of one I've got. I've got one amazing scroll on ninjas, and it was on ninja, and it's written in 1639. Now, 1639 is a very early date for ninja, but people are like, Edo period. But if that is written by a 60-year-old who's sat there writing in his retirement, that's a real Sengoku period ninja doing that. He's writing it down. If it is written by a 40-year-old in 1639, that is someone who was literally brought up by Sengoku period warriors. If it's written in 1639 by a 20-year-old, it's still someone who's brought up by Sengoku period grandfathers. Yep. So it's probably as close to ninja information as you get, but 1639 is Edo period, goes into the Edo period bracket, is pushed over here. So, and so then of course you get generational shadow. So that's author experience. So author experience is the idea that what's that author done? So at the minute we're re-looking at some parts of the Gunpo Joshu. I'm going to be doing a collab with Sean from the Flute channel, David from the Stories channel, and Sengoku Studies, and we're all putting it together for you guys, and there's going to be a video coming out in the future when we can get it done. It's a long process, but we're looking at it, and we're looking at when that author was writing, what was his experience. And it turns out we've looked at the dates, we looked at everything, and we're back to our original conclusion from 10 years ago when I first did the Gunpo Joshu, is that is the guy was around in the Sengoku period. He was a warrior of at least 20 years old, if not older, by the time the Sengoku period ends. By the time Sekigahara is there, yeah, he's a well experienced person, right? Well experienced. So, and he's writing his information down. That's author. So if the person is born in 1580 and they're 20 years old at Sekigahara, which is old, but they live until they're 100, let's say, Some people do. They live to 97, 100, 98, 100, something like that, yeah? So they write their stuff down or tell their stories down. As long as their memory's okay, or as long as they're at least compos mentis, then you can get something right the way up until about 1670, 1660, 1670, 1680. Can still be full-on Sengoku period knowledge, if you know what I mean. He remembers, yeah, I was a child and we used to cut off people's heads here and we used to do this, and yeah, I remember that. But even if not, so we have this idea that you've got the author experience, but also the generational shadow, which is him. So if that he's telling someone in 1610, so he's 40-year-old, I'm 45, yeah? So imagine I've just had a son, as you all know, and I'm telling my son now, oh God, yeah, the 90s was like this. Well, actually, I was born in the 70s, son, and I remember the early 80s, and I remember all the sort of like the little inside bars at my nan's house, and all the like little ashtrays, and everybody was smoking, and you went out and you stank of smoke, and the pubs were full of this, that, and the other, and kids didn't go in the pubs, and I remember that. And then we had bonfires on the streets. You didn't have bonfire in a place where it was organised, and then you could go buy fireworks. You could easily get into the pub when you're about 14, and I could just tell them all about through the 90s and 2000s. That is my generational shadow onto my son, and he will be like, oh yeah, bonfire. But generation by generation, that disappears into the generational shadow as that goes. So what you get is author experience. I wanted to write a book about life in the metal community, the heavy metal community in the late 90s and early 2000s. I can absolutely write. Manchester Rock World is one of the most famous rock venues there is in the world, and it was there, and I was a Rock World original every week, 3 times a week. Rock World, there I am. Yep, right. First time I didn't do that was when I went off to Japan for my first time. I spent a year, first week back straight off to Rock World. Yep, there I was. I could write a book about metal, heavy metal in the late 90s and early 2000s, 100%. I could then tell my son about it, and he could write about it and get it quite accurate, except there'll be some things start to move in. Of course, we've got our own memory issues, which we do know, and we have incorrect communication issues, which you have. So they're the problems you've got in samurai literature. Somebody could be there and write about it, but they might have remembered it wrong, or they might be lying. But the chances are most people are not lying when they're talking about their personal, but they've got their agenda, but they're not going to lie. So very few people who can easily be caught out would openly lie about their. So you get, for example, now you get stolen valor and all that from people who are never there, but it tends not to be the people of the generation who are actually there. Or if it is, there's like one in. How many people actually do stolen valor? Yeah, how many people? 1 in a million lie about it. Say they did this, yeah. Then you get stories like my grandfather, who was on my mother's side, was a storyteller. He actually used to write for television. He was too young to be in the war, whereas my other grand was in the war. But he used to say, oh yeah, there were Spitfires used to come down. He was totally lying, but it was for kids' entertainment. Then later on in years, he's like, no, I was just telling you poor kids, you know what I mean, don't worry about it. So you get that. So there's that to think about. Then there's embellishment to think about. Then there's political things to think about. But the one thing above all, which I'm trying to get across here, is all those are identifiable and we can look at them. But 100%, when somebody says that's an Edo period text, is it really? Was it written by Sengoku period? You only got a 50-year span on this, really. So from the end of Sekigahara, let's say, you're looking at who has experienced war, and then you say, okay, it's probably within the next 50 years people who are writing about it can tell you that as long as they're of the age, they are telling you about it. Then of course you say, well, then you've got the Shimabara rebellion, or who's experienced war. Well, certain people in this area experienced war, big rebellions and big stuff. So for you guys out there, samurai history folk, I just want you to remember to stop making such a division between Sengoku, Edo. Now, of course, there are multiple lesser divisions, and that line itself moves 1603. I've talked to Scott from Sengoku Studies, and in the hope that me and Scott will do a video on this in the future about where the lines are in Japanese history. But them lines are not hard lines. Them lines are very fluid, guys, because it depends what you are looking for. It is a very, I'm not going to say poor academic way, but it's a very static academic way to look at something and find a fixed line. The lines move depending on what you're after, okay? So it isn't like, you get away from this idea that 1603, 1600 is, or this is, I forget the other one for the end of Sengoku period or the end of Muromachi and all that. 1580 something. Like, this is there. No. If you're looking for Sengoku information, so let's look for military information from the Sengoku period, you're probably looking at early 1600s documents, because when they're actually doing their military campaigning, they're not writing their documents down. So like the person we're talking about, the Gunpo Jiyoshu, Ogasawara, Sakun, he basically is a Sengoku period warrior writing in 1610. Yep. So when we're looking for Sengoku period writings, you can look to him in the Edo period for a Sengoku period writing. Okay, there is a blur that goes across. Okay, guys, I just wanted to do a quick video for you. I hope that helps. If you want to help me out, guys, get yourself a copy of Book of Bushido Audible. I've got 4 books on Audible, guys. Book of Ninja, How to Be a Modern Samurai, The Art of War, and Book of Bushido are all on Audible. So just click that. I know you've got credits. I've got credits and I click them too. So if you've got an Audible account, get on there, guys. If not, help me out and do that, or you can super thanks me. Ooh, beautiful. Don't forget, YouTube gets that money as well. Right, beyond that, guys, let me know your comments below. Let me know if you agree, disagree, what's going on, and tell me all about it.